and has started sharing. So now we see, oh, look at that, boys and girls. We got a presentation happening.
Well,
Awesome.
I'm not there yet. I wanted to go to presentation mode on the PDF. Right now I'm in working mode for the
Well, I think you
PDF.
can I think you can do that while you're here, but it
Yeah, I know. You
yep,
see my arrow?
yep, you should be good.
If I go here, I should have the opportunity to go to presentation mode. That's based on what I think I know. But
Fantastic.
let me see what happens. And if I go to, how's that?
Oh,
Yes.
that's perfect.
Excellent.
Well, then, as a brief introduction, since you can hear me somewhat clearly, I guess, ladies and gentlemen, Real or Fake by Ed Grabowski. I will share a personal story. I met Ed for the first time in Cleveland at March Party when I was a very young collector. I think I had just met Ken at the same show, and I was like an enamored child meeting a superstar. And I never thought I would actually have a relationship with this guy that was the most experienced French colonies guy I'd ever heard of, etc. And so it's just a pleasure to get to know you, Ed, and I enjoy watching every presentation that you do. So please bring us real or fake today.
Well, you've overstated things actually. The really fantastic collector of the French colonies was Bob Stone, who was our editor for 20 years. He got the Liechtenstein Award. I think he signed a distinguished role, but he was the real French colonies man. And Alain Millet in Paris also was a fantastic colonies collector. So I was just a Johnny come lately.
Mhm.
But this is actually a reprise lecture for me. I gave it a long time ago, and when I was talking to Ken about a possible presentation, I said to him, I thought we have enough new members, they've probably not heard this talk. And I think it maybe has some good messages. We'll see how you think about it at the end. And this relates to some experiences I've had with some covers and also a one frame exhibit. Real or fake? How does a philatelist know for sure? And I'm going to talk about a Madagascar Norwegian missionary cover and beyond. Okay, this is just my guesstimate. Don't hold me to this. It's a feeling. It's not a fact. But I think with respect to Madagascar postal history, 99% of it is France. Okay, in one way or another, all categories of mail. A small bit of it is British, and that's primarily British consular mail, and a tiny bit of it is Norway, and that's Norwegian missionary mail. So that's my introduction to Madagascar. The Norwegian missionary mail. During the late 19th century, Norwegian missionaries had a presence in Madagascar. A special mail system was set up to facilitate correspondence among the Norwegian families. Crude local stamps were prepared and used. Mail was carried by runners amongst the various villages in Madagascar. There was no really official sanction for this service. France was still handling Madagascar as a territory, not a colony. It had offices located throughout the colony, but it wasn't a unified French colony. And these Norwegian missionary covers are really rare. Okay, you see a lot of dollar signs there. We'll get there. And in this mess of Madagascar, here comes Grabowski, and I say trouble. I began exhibiting a new one frame exhibit of early Madagascar postal history in March of 2006. It was mostly French material with a sprinkling of some British covers. However, at the Washington 2006 show, I came across a Norwegian missionary cover. And that's it up close, okay? It's for these covers, it's really a Jim Dandy, and you can see the
Mm.
beautiful cancel on the stamp of April 29th, 1896. And very, very clean cover to Fort Dauphin. Where's Fort Dauphin, you ask? Here's the lower 40% of Madagascar. Tananarive is the capital. Mark this city, this town of Vadomandri. We're going to come back there later on in the talk. And this missionary cover went to Fort Dauphin, which is way down on the southern coast, southeast coast of Madagascar. So what about this Norwegian missionary cover? It was one of the best known in terms of quality. It was addressed to a Miss Carolyn Nielsen in Fort Dauphin, a known addressee for these covers. Oh, that's good. It had certificates, and by certificates, I mean printed forms, nicely printed expert forms, photographs of the cover. The photographs were tied by pressed seals. There was text description and signatures, and it had certificates from Williams in Great Britain, Holcomb in Switzerland, and Calve, Roger Calve in France, attesting to its genuineness. And the price was approximately that of one Honda Accord. Okay, just to put it in perspective, I'll let you all think about this. I was taken by this cover and I really wanted it for my Madagascar collection. But I didn't know anything about these covers. I had zero previous background. I didn't even know they existed until I came across this one. I talked to some of the other dealers, postal history dealers at the show in Washington, but they seemed to have limited knowledge about this area. I went back to the sellers and told them I was interested but wanted to study the area first. And they warned me that it was a great cover and might quickly sell at the show. And I said, well, that'll be my fate, and we'll see what happens. So after the show, I went and gathered all the literature I could find. There was no indication of problems with the cover. I began to negotiate a more favorable purchase price by email with the dealers now back in Europe. But there was one more article that I needed to get. And I did so at the 11th hour, thanks to Irene Bromberg, the secretary at the Collectors Club.
Mhm.
I went downstairs in the club looking for this article, and I couldn't find it amongst the bound volumes. And I came back and cried on Irene's shoulder, and she said, let's try again. And we went down and we pulled out some of the bound volumes, the right ones. And lo and behold, we found a couple of unbound volumes of journals that were crunched up, and one of them was the unbound volume I wanted. So here I have to introduce Jean-Francois Brun. I don't know if how many of you have met him and know him. He's the son of the famous expert dealer A. Brun in Paris. I think he's more famous than his father, but that may be a judgment based on the fact that I've met him and talked to him and bought a little bit of stuff from him. And he published an article in a 1999 edition of Document Philatelique, the Journal of the French Academy. And the title of the article was Letters to Caroline, Letters Addressed to the Norwegian Missionaries. Sounded right up my alley. The article by Brun was of 4 pages on the cover shown on the right. And he compared this cover to a well-established cover that has a long history in the field and is considered to be genuine. The genuine cover is to the same addressee and apparently written by the same hand. And so there's the cover that was for sale at the Washington 2006 show at the upper right. And at the lower left is the cover in the Brun article. And when I saw the Brun article, I didn't say yipes. I said something more nasty, which I can't write down. I said something, this article is on the very cover I'm thinking of buying. Holy gee, Jean-Francois did an article on this cover. And in his article, he shows a recognized, established, genuine cover in this area with a long-standing pedigree. It's well represented in the French literature. It's well represented in Norwegian literature. and it's considered by all to be a genuine cover. Uh, just after, well, while all this was going on, Roumet had a sale in Paris, and lo and behold, he actually sold this cover again, and I was able to get a color picture out of the Roumet catalog, and it actually sold for 15,000 euros. Okay, so that puts a price on what these things can go for. And you look at this cover, and you say, "Wow, it's pretty crappy looking.
Hmm.
It's damaged at the right. Okay, it's got a lot of foxing both on the cover and the stamp, and creases, and at the left side, who knows what's going. It's a real messy cover. It brought 15,000 euros. Wow, these things are really valuable." I'm going to jump way over to 2020 right now and just bring you some more information that came up. A fellow named Luc Monterey, you can see his name at the lower left. Luc is in Colfra, the French Colony Society in France, and his premier area of study is Madagascar, and he can find all sorts of stuff in Madagascar. And he was giving a talk in 2020, and he had caught up on my story about this cover, and so he put this slide in just for background for me. And he said the guide directories of Madagascar for 1898 onwards, he has access to this stuff. I don't know how or where. Indicate that Miss C. Nilsson at the American Lutheran Mission of Fort Dauphin, assisted by the Reverend Isolani with his wife. Carolyn Nielsen was the daughter of Niels Nielsen, pastor at, I'm not going to try and pronounce these Madagascar towns and cities, who, after 20 years of pastoral life in Madagascar, returned to Norway, then emigrated to the USA. His three children, who grew up in the US, were then missionaries of the American Mission at Fort Dauphin. This validates, Carolyn Nielsen as an addressee for these covers. And what Brun does in his article, he compares the writing on the addresses between the two covers. The genuine cover from the Nielsen correspondence, okay, with all its damage, and this one that I'm thinking about buying. Now, if I ask all of you to look at it from the overall point of view, well, looks like they were written by the same hand. Okay, I mean, you notice the M here with the big loop-de-loop, the M in Madagascar with the loop-de-loop. It's canted, it's tipped a bit, it's tipped it a bit. It seems the same. But Brun goes forward and he does, I think it was about a 14-point comparison of the handwriting. I'm not going to do all 14 points, don't panic. I just picked a couple. But I just like to show those to you. Here's the authentic cover here, okay? And here's the cover that was offered to me at the Washington show. And the thing I'd like you to catch first is look at the slant on the K in the genuine cover. It's actually about 45 degrees, okay? Look at the slant on the
Hmm.
K and the one that I was thinking of buying. It's about half of 45 degrees. That's sort of interesting. Uh, in fact, the whole address in the authentic cover has that 45-degree slant,
There's not
whereas
as
the
much of a
whole
slant.
address in this one is about that 20-degree slant. Oh, that just makes you stop and think a little bit. Let's look at the fort. Okay, here's the fort on the genuine cover, fancy F with a cross. Oh, there's no cross here. Okay. Look at the T. The T and the F are sort of bound together. There's a big space between the T and the F. Look at the D of Dauphin, and they're really quite
Early
different.
T. Yeah.
Okay, there's a big space between those. And the whole thing really comes apart when you look at the word Madagascar. You look at the G in the genuine, you've got the top of the G and the bottom of the G comes up and touches the
And there's a
G.
break.
You look at the G here in the cover I'm thinking of buying, and there's a big space between the two. You look at the A is a nice oval that seems to be resting on an arm coming out of it. And the A here is really quite different. It's just not the same A. It's very narrow. It's got an extension. It just doesn't look right. And then everything totally falls apart when you look at the S. The S is a nice oval attached here. The S here has a twist in the turn on this side. It's got a loop-de-loop over here. Totally absent. That's a totally different construction of the S. And as I said, Brun did like 12 or 14 comparisons. I'm not doing them all. I just highlighted some of the ones that I like. So Brun concluded the letters were not written by the same hand. Whoever prepared the cover in question attempted to duplicate the writing on the genuine cover, but on close inspection failed to do so. Brun also compared the pen cancel on the stamp of what's appearing to be the false cover with genuine cancels on covers and off-cover stamps for the Norwegian missionary stamps. And this cancel is not like any known pen cancel from the period. It's a totally new cancel. So he ends the article by declaring that the letter and the cancellation of the stamp on it are fabrications. So that put me at the point of 3 yeses and 1 no. Okay, but that to me was a convincing no. And I said, no sale. Okay, I wasn't going to buy this cover. For those interested, this cover was available in an October 2006 European net price sale for a modest 15,000 euros. The price was then raised to 21,750 euros on eBay stores. When I commented to the owners of the cover about Brun's article, their comment back to me was experts disagree. And I continued to follow the cover for the next 2 or 3 years, and it was bouncing around between auctions in Europe and the United States. And the last time I saw it, I think was 2008. It was selling out of an American auction, and the starting price was $5,000. Okay, and I don't think it sold. So I really avoided a big bullet here, okay? Maybe a bomb. But it turns out that wasn't the end, okay? The beat goes on. And I want to take you over now to another area of Madagascar interest, Madagascar British Consulate combination covers from 1895. Mail from the capital at Tananarive, the British called it Antananarivo, the French call it Tananarive. Mail from Tananarive to Europe from the British consular office went from the British consular office in Tananarive to the town of Vatamandri, which I showed you before on the coast. And that employed local British consular stamps. From Vatamandri, it got aboard a local ship and traveled around the southern coast of Madagascar to Durban, Natal. And in Durban, Natal, it was refranked with a 2.5 penny Natal stamp, which was the UPU rate and UPU regulations. And this dual franking was done from, could somebody shut their mic off? I'm getting some banging and whatnot. This service went from May of 1895 through September. So we had the local British issues paying the rate to Vatamandri and then Durban on the East Coast, and then the Durban issues paying the international rate back to wherever it was going. And during the early portion of 1895, it was this typeset stamp, just prepared at a local printing shop. And then in later 1895, the Brits came up with a whole set, okay, from 2 pennies to I think a shilling. And here's the 4 penny of that set, which prepaid the rate from the British consular office to Durban, Natal. So these are the two stamps that were used. I just want to show you a little bit more about this, a little more Madagascar history. In 1895, the French began a military campaign up in Majunga, which is on the west coast of Madagascar. And they, over the course of 1895 into 1896, came down to the capital at Tananarive and established a military post office and military government in Tananarive. And as I said, the British had their British agency here, and they brought the two doubly franked covers to Vatimandry, and then it sailed around the southern coast of Madagascar and up into Durban, which is right about here. Okay, uh, so that's a little bit of what things are looking like. Here's a different map from Langlois and Bourselet, the French colonies book of, what is it, 1928, which is still a wonderful book. Here's the capital at Tananarive. Here's Vatimandry. Okay, Fort Dauphin is down there. And here's Tamatave, which is the major port city, just to give you a little more familiarity with Madagascar. So I started buying these covers, okay? I got excited about them, these dual frank covers. Here's a genuine cover with the early stamp on it, okay, 4 pence, paying that rate to Durban. It's got various expert signatures. It was posted in June of 1895. You can see it goes through Durban and on to England. Uh, there's no question, actually, a census, which we'll get to in a bit, came out a little later. And this is in the census of the experts in this area, giving us information on all the genuine covers. This cover also came up, cover with the later stamp. This one has a royal certificate, okay? You see the 4 penny stamp with the perforations that was used in August and September, and it's 9th of September, and then you see the Durban stamp. So this one looks perfectly fine, and I bought that for my collection too. And then this one came up, has an unusual pen cancel. Okay, it's got a royal certificate. Okay, the stamp was canceled by Penn for the local part of the journey. It was the only recorded copy of a pen cancel in this area. It's got the same Natal 2.5 penny stamp for the international postage, and it's got a royal certificate that states it is genuine. Okay, and there's the picture of the cover so you can get a better look at it. So it came up in an auction, and I purchased it for my collection. I purchased it from Cavendish. Okay, maybe some of you have dealt with Cavendish in the United Kingdom. It was thought to be genuine by the seller, who was a member of the Academy, by Cavendish, and myself because of the royal certificate. About 3 months after I purchased it, I got an email from Cavendish, specifically James Grimwood Taylor. Some of you may have met him. And Taylor warned me there was going to be a new article in the London Philatelist in January that made the claim that this is a fake cover with the Madagascar stamp added after the fact and pen canceled. Holy gee. So what are the issues with this? Okay. The cancel on the Natal stamp is not the proper office of Durban. It is the GPO cancel of Pieter Maritzburg on June 28th, 1895. This mail only went through Durban. It didn't go to this other town. The date on the Natal stamp is incorrect relative to the established monthly mailings from Antananarivo. Okay, so it's got the wrong date. That's June 28th, 1895. The real problem is, for this date, the early Madagascar stamp should have been used. The printed one with perforations didn't exist yet. Okay, you hear that? It didn't exist, yet it was on my cover. So what happens now? Well, information was sent to the Royal for review. They withdrew the original certificate and issued a new one saying the cover is a fake in light of new information. Here's the cancel on the fake cover, And you can see it's very clearly 28th of June, 1895. This is GPO. It's not Durban. This is the O of GPO. The P is broken. The G has gotten sealed a little bit. This is the cancel of that Pietermaritzburg, and not the cancel of Durban. So what happens now? Well, I have to think of Alfred E. Newman at this point. What me worry? My payment was complete. I did not ask for an extension. The seller had already been paid. The transaction was complete. Who's at fault and what should be done? The seller sold a fake cover. Blame him. The auction house was liable for selling a fraudulent cover. Blame them. I'm at fault for not questioning the pen cancel and getting another opinion. Maybe John Francois again. Maybe we're all at fault and should share in the debacle. So what happened? I recommended that we all three share in the responsibility. Cavendish countered with the view that it is their responsibility to sell genuine material, and they are at fault, and not only will fully refund my money, $5,500, they did refund my money, no questions asked. I sent the cover back to them. They donated it to the Royal for reference, and the bottom line is deal with honest dealers, Cavendish or Princes. They informed me about the pending article, which maybe I wouldn't have seen, and they have fully refunded my purchase price. Bravo, Cavendish. And what was learned? Well, the first cover, three of the world's top experts said it was genuine. Clearly, they had little knowledge of the area, yet they were willing to issue certificates. The second cover, the Royal Philatelic Society, one of the most respected bodies, was wrong on a major British area item. The cover had the incorrect Madagascar stamp. Even if you just look in your Scott catalog, you get the months on the use of these two stamps. The cover was transferred from the wrong Natal post office. Not only is it an incorrect office, but it is an inland office which could not have been reached by ship from Vadamandri. So the bottom line is, caveat emptor, a certificate is only as good as the knowledge that is behind it. So what did I do? Well, I ran back to my safe harbor, stick with French area material. I have a sense for it. I know a bit about it. I have access to the literature, and I have some friends who know more than I know about it. So I'm in a good position to buy good material. If you go out of the French area, be very careful to buy established covers where there's no question about the authenticity. I thought there was enough material in this Madagascar area, early area, to make a strong one-frame exhibit. And so the first competition, a friend named Nick Lombardi, who's in the Westfield, New Jersey Stamp Club, was doing a one-frame exhibit on the 3-cent Jackson issue of 1902, use on registered letters. It's very rare and unusual on registered letters. And I went up against Nick with my Madagascar early postal history at the local Westfield, New Jersey show. Both Nick and I got gold medals for our one-frame exhibits, but Nick got the one-frame Grand Prix. Okay, so he beat me out. Later in the year, we went up against one another again at the Mega Show, and I got a gold medal. Nick got a large Ramée. So this showed I could compete with my Madagascar one frame exhibit. I could compete in the one frame world. So at this point, I just like to take a little journey away from some of this dangerous stuff and tell you a little bit about my collection that I had, some of the unusual early Madagascar covers. And here's one that's British consular mail, which was carried by runner from Tananarive to Tamatave. But it's a government franchise letter on Her Britannic Majesty's service. So the British postage is free. Okay, you can see the cachet of the vice consul of the British office at Tananarive, the date stamp from Tananarive. It was transferred over to the French office at Tamatave, where it was franked with type de bois stamps. They were available in Madagascar at this time, 1891. At the 30 centime rate, it's a letter within the borders of Madagascar. You can see it's Nosive, which is in southwest Madagascar. It's a double weight letter, so it's 2 times 15 centimes. And if you look closely at each of the important parts of the letter, you can see there's a reasonable strike of the vice consulate's hand stamp, a readable strike of the British Antananarivo, Tamatave here, and good copies of the 2 type de bois 25 and 5 centime stamps. So that's a really, really neat cover showing British agency origin. As I said, they were using type de bois in Madagascar in the 1890s. This is a 5th weight registered letter, 1 franc 50, Tamatave to Port Louis, Mauritius. And you can see the Tamatave cancel here, the registration marking. 30th of September to 2nd of October, it caught the packet calling Tamatave and took it. It went to Mauritius and Reunion before it turned around and came back. And that's a close-up of the block of 6 of the 25 centime. A 1 franc and a 50 centime would have been better for this franking, but that probably doesn't exist. But a very nice use of that block. Oh, here's one of the double franking inland mail letters, but this one was a double weight one from 1895 early, and you can see it's now the 8 pence, not the 4 pence, because it's a double weight. And when it got to Durban, it got 2 2.5 penny stamps. This is in the census of genuine covers for this area now, and it also had a royal certificate. So again, I wasn't worried about the authenticity. In 1891, they started running out of the 5 centime rate type de bois stamps for printed matter. And so they overprinted groupings of 40s, 05, and the 10 centime type de bois, just 5, to make more printed matter stamps. And what we have here from Tamatave is this 1890, these 1891 issues, 3 on the 40, 3 on the 5 to make a double weight 30 centime letter from Tamatave to a little tiny village in Madagascar that did not have a post office, but was near a second village that had a post office. And you can see it's a business letter. So very nice usage of these overprints. And everything's genuine about that cover. Madagascar at this time in the early 1890s also came up with numeral stamps, a 5, a 10, a 15, a 25, and I think a 1 franc and a 5 franc stamps. And here's an example of 2 25s paying the registered 50 centime international rate, 25 centimes postage, 25 registration. From Tananarive, okay, via French packet line T, via London to Barbados, okay. To my knowledge, it's the only letter I've ever seen from early Madagascar to Barbados. It does have a Barbados arrival of November 20th, 1892. So it's really nice use of that 25 centime stamp. Here's a different but also very interesting use of the 25. 6 of them on a single letter. It's a 5th weight, which is 70 to 90 grams, registered letter from Tamatave to Paris. And in addition to having this very unusual franking, if you look at the stamps, you can see deterioration in the printing. They must have had a lot of different printings available at Tamatave at this time. These 2 are really quite clear and sharp, and you can see by the time you get to this last one here, it's all dirty, plugged up, and it's just quite a nice assemblage of these stamps on a very heavyweight letter to Paris. Here's one that's a single use of the 10 centime numeral stamp. This is actually a nice rarity that nobody really knows about. The Scott catalog of the used stamp is $25. The Scott catalog used singly on cover is $500. Okay, that's quite a premium for single usage. And the reason is there are only a few 10 centime rates. The one that I can readily think of is the letter rate within the same city, town, or village. It was 10 centimes. The other one I can think of that I've never seen is a double printed matter rate, 2 times 5 centimes. So this is a real nice example of the use of that 10 centime stamp. And to make it nicely proper, if you zero in on the stamp, you can see a little bit of overlay of the circular date stamp tying it to the cover. So there's no question but that this stamp was on this cover for travel through the mail within Tamatave. Very nice usage. Here's one that's a triple weight letter from Tamatave to Saint-Denis Reunion, where we have two 25s, two 10s, and a 5, and it's a letter between banks. I'm sure they had a lot of heavyweight mail, and just the spectacular franking of that numeral date stamp. The next cover, I'm going to ask everybody to just look at the top writing, not the bottom writing. This was going to be an official PowerPoint where I had more control on what's going on, but I moved it to Adobe because I wanted to send Jer a copy in case I had problems presenting it. So don't look at what I wrote in the bottom. Here's one with the 25 centime stamp used singly from Tamatave via the Reunion Marseille packet to Nosy Bay. Hey, wait a minute, Nosy Bay's in Madagascar. Why is this 25 centimes? It should be less. Well, the answer is Nosy Bay was a separate colony. It wasn't part of Madagascar in 1891. So it needed the international rate. And so this is correct. It's not tied, but it is correct. Proper use of the 25 to a place that became part of Madagascar, but wasn't part of Madagascar in 91 when this letter was sent. Also used in Madagascar during this period, 1895-96, was the French tissage stamps. Okay, here's the 25 centime. This is the period before August 1896 when Madagascar became a colony. Tananarive was under military control and had a military post office. And they used numeral cancellations. Tananarive was number 1, and this is from Tananarive. It reads number 1, Trésor Poste aux Armées from Madagascar. It's a military cancel on the 25. At that point, it's a nice cover. It's not exceptional. But if you look at the destination is Romania in Bucharest. So that suddenly becomes a really great cover. And if we look closely, it's actually a pretty good strike of the military cancel. And you turn it over, and it arrived at the Bucharest post office number 3 and was moved over to the post restant area, awaiting the addressee to come and pick it up. So overall, just a tremendous use of the 25 centime tissage. Here's a 5 centime printed matter from Tamatave. Just as a printed matter, it's a nice cover, but not particularly spectacular until you look at the destination. And the destination is Manila in the Philippines. Okay, so we've got an 1895 printed matter piece from Madagascar to the Philippines, which makes it a really exceptional printed matter use. 1896, they were running out of the necessary tissage stamps 5, 15, and 25 that we used for most of the mail. So they took the cheap stamps, 1, 2, and 3 centime stamps, and overprinted them with oval overprints with numerals inside, 5, 15, and 25. These have been extensively counterfeited, but not particularly. I haven't seen any false covers. Here's the 5-on-1 tissage overprint from the office of the Resident General in Madagascar, the big cheese in the colony at the time. to Le Havre in France. And what's really nice when you look closely at the cover, you can see the overprint. It's quite clear and it's a genuine overprint. No problems on it. You can see the #1 Trésor Post cancel. Since this went through the military post office in Tananarive, they didn't have the civilian post office yet. When it got on the packet, it didn't get the civilian date stamp. You notice it says the Expeditionary Corps of Madagascar military date stamp, line U #2. That's just like a little extra for this cover, which is spectacular use of that 5 centime stamp on printed matter. There's proper use of the 15 centime stamp within the colony of Madagascar, again from Tananarive. You see the #1 Trésor Post close up here, just so you can see everything looks proper about the cancel and the overprint. It went on the Reunion Marseille packet, Tananarive to Tamatave, Tamatave up to Diego Suarez. And then in Diego Suarez, it got off the packet and on a local sailing vessel, which brought it down to Majunga, that entry point on the West Coast where the military campaign started, because it was destined for a small village in the area that probably had no post office, and this was the closest post office. That idea again, just a really nice use of the 15 centime or ellipse overprint. And again, it's just three shows. Here's Majunga, here's Tamatave, Tananarive, Tamatave. The packet went up the coast to Diego, and that's when it got on a local ship down to Majunga and the small villages someplace in that area. Finally, we have the 25 centime overprint on the 3 centime stamp. This is part of a regular commercial correspondence. The Pagnot firm had an office in Tananarive. Its home headquarters were in Lyon. You see a lot of Madagascar mail. This is a particularly good one with a nice strip of 3 of that 25 centime overprint. And to give you a sense of this, I think those stamps still catalog about $1,000 a piece. So that's $3,000 worth of catalog on a cover. So that's a pretty good cover. Some really nice material. Anybody who knows a little bit about Madagascar should ask me at this point, what about the large format British consular stamps, Ed? How come you haven't shown us any of those? Well, this is a popular area for the collecting of stamps, but I've never seen any covers with these stamps. The reason you don't see any covers is because the way they were used. They started at the British consular offices with this stamp to pay the internal rate, but the stamp wasn't fully gummed. It normally just had a dab of gum. It was pasted to the letter, and when it got to a post office that handled international mail, this stamp would be taken off, and the stamps of the French colonial stamps or maybe British stamps would be put on, depending on where it went. So these never survived on cover by the way they were used. They were taken off once it reached a post office handling international mail. The dealer in California, who's a British dealer whose name I can't remember for the moment, he said he has 2 with this stamp still on it. I've never seen one, and I wrote it out of my exhibit because I didn't want to show just stamps. But here's an interesting British consular mail letter, and I realized something about this that I didn't think of before I sold the cover, and I should have thought about this. This letter originated in the British consular office in Tananarive on 2nd of August. It was carried to Tamatave by runner, as I mentioned before, and passed through the office at Tamatave, and then brought to the French office at Tamatave, where it got the 25 centime type to bois stamp. And then it was picked up in Tamatave via French packet line T, proving it made it through the mails and on to London. It's got a London back stamp. But the thing I never thought about was, could this be one of the covers that had this British consular mail stamp on it, and that stamp was right here, okay? And that stamp was removed once it got to Tamatave, and the 25 centime type de bois was put on over the glue that was on the cover. And the thing I never thought about was, spreading this cover open and putting a bright flashlight behind the stamp to see if you could see residues of that glue. That would point to the fact that may have had a British consular stamp on it that was taken off, but I didn't think of that. So I don't know if that was the case that obtains, or if it was just prepaid in cash up front and carried to the French office at Tamatave where it was posted. I just don't know which is the better explanation for this cover, but it is a spectacular cover with these two British markings on it, and the French carry along Tamatave in the line T. Uh, so, what was my most unusual Madagascar cover? And I would say of all of them, the one I had a particular fancy for was a March 1878 commercial cover, franked with the 40 centime Ceres issue of the French colonies' general issues. The French colonies' general issues, save except for the type de bois, were not distributed in Madagascar. There are chance usages that show up where people had gotten, for whatever reason, some of the general issues. Uh, this is an example of use of the 40 centime, one of the nicer general issues. At 40 centimes, this was the proper rate from Madagascar to France in 1878. The letter traveled from the port at Tamatave on a commercial ship with no postal facilities. The captain dropped the cover off at Marseille, his first French port of call, when he arrived on Marseille. And this represents exceptional use of a general issue stamp. And if we focus in on things, the first thing is this is a merchant in Tamatave, okay, that you can find out about on a search of the web, okay. If you look very, very carefully here, you can see the bare outlines of an octagonal red date stamp. And that date stamp, if I remember correctly, says Col Fra for Colonies Français and Marseille. This is the entry cancellation for the Marseille Port Post Office. Okay. It also bears a Marseille Bouches du Rhône cancellation, and then was transferred over to the third district post office for handling, where it was actually canceled, okay, with the number 3 Marseille 12th arrondissement. And from there, it went to the Sète à Bordeaux rail line, okay, and finally arrived in Libourne, its destination. So it's just a tremendous routing, tremendous grouping of markings and use of the 40 centime French colonies Ceres general issue. The only thing better it could have is if it was the recut for, but it's not the recut for. That's probably just not possible in terms of probability. So that's my story. It's the end of the Madagascar one frame exhibit. As time went by, I began to realize that this was not a true one frame exhibit. There was enough early material for an exhibit to be maybe 3, maybe 4 or more frames. True one frame exhibits are limited to one frame because the story can be told in a one frame showing, and the amount of material available will support no more than a one frame exhibit. I've talked about my reunion dues collection, 3 weeks reunion dues we used for local mail because of a shortage of group type. There are about 50, 60 covers known there. I had 30 of them in my collection. That did very well in exhibiting. Another one framer I had was Obak group type. The group type was used for such a short period, and there were so many Somali Coast, Djibouti, other stamps, Obak stamps, that the group type just got pushed out. So I was able to do a one frame group type stamp, a group type exhibit. And the best one framers I've ever seen Was at the Collectors Club one framer one year. There was one on the St. Louis Bears. Those two St. Louis stamps catalog $5,000 and $10,000 each. And this was a 16-page exhibit that had blocks, plate reconstructions, and multiples on cover. It was just absolutely phenomenal. That won the Grand Prix. And then a similar New York 10-cent Postmaster Provisional won the Reserve Grand Prix. Those two are the best one framers that I've ever seen. Regarding one frame, if you're really exhibiting from an area that doesn't fit a one frame, the judges will ultimately catch you, okay, and they'll start giving you a hard time. And this is not a proper one frame exhibit. So I ended up closing out my one frame Madagascar exhibit and selling off the material. So that's the story of my two covers and some of the nicer covers that I had in my collection. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. I have to look for there it is. Stop sharing and turn it back to who's ever taking over.
Ed, that is why you remain in my pantheon of unbelievable philatelists. The breadth, the depth, and the experience, talking about exhibiting, talking about the stamps. Unbelievable. Appreciate the presentation. I've literally laid in this public place with my ear on my microphone so I could hear what you were saying. It was awesome. I look forward to watching it again. I've asked Ken to handle the Q&A session, so I'm going to pass it over to Ken, and then give me a high sign or something when you're done, Ken, and I will stop the recording. So appreciate you guys. Had a great afternoon. I'm really glad this worked out for all of us.
Wait, I have a question.
Yep, you're in. I'm going to pass it to Ken to handle all that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. Ed, the first cover that you showed from Tomatave was addressed to the town name was Nosivey, Nosivey. And
No,
when I saw
was Nussie
that,
Bay or Nussie Bay?
well, it
B-E-Y.
was spelled with a V instead of a B.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I was wondering, it made me wonder if it was in fact a variable spelling of Nosy Bay. And Loic and I have been kind of discussing this a little bit on the chat about whether that in fact was addressed to the island of Nosy Bay, or he suggested there's possibly a town on the island of Madagascar that is
Yeah,
spelled that way.
it has also a direction designation, I think, on it as SW or something for, I thought that meant Southwest.
Oh, it could. It
So
could.
I think there is a town named Nosive. Loic, I don't see him here, but if
No,
he's there,
I'm Ed. I'm here. I'm pretty sure there is a second location that was Nocive with a V. I will find you a map and
well, you
more
don't have
data.
to find me a map. Just look it up in Lingua and Borsale, and
Yeah, but I'm
I
not
love,
sure it's in there. I'll
oh, I
check. I'll
love
check.
that book. I love that book.
I'll
Yeah.
check. Otherwise, I'll ping Luke and I ask Luke because he knows everything about
Okay, well, we
that.
got to go back to Luke. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the source
But
of all
but
serious
also,
information.
Ed, something that you discussed later in your talk about these outlying islands not being considered part of the colony of Madagascar.
Yeah,
To me, and I forget what the franking was on the Nosy Ve cover, but
that was the internal franking, two
okay,
times
well
15.
then I think that kind of settles that is not a variable spelling as I was wondering about
No,
of
it's
the
not.
island.
Yeah.
It would in fact be a town on the main island.
Indeed, when to show you that Nussie Bay, the BE was a different place. Nussie Bay got its group type stamps, and it actually ran. Um, oh gosh, now I can't think of the name of the one of the other towns that ran along with Sainte Marie de Madagascar. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you look for, well, you look for certain issues used from different different entities in that. I had fun with that in my early group type exhibit when I was doing these things. I no, I take that back. Maybe it was Diego that ran
Diego
Nosy
Suarez.
Bay and Saint Marie de
Yeah,
Madagascar.
right.
Uh,
Well, as usual, Ed, with you, this was kind of a thrilling roller coaster ride of French philately, and your sleuthing is just it's fascinating. I can't get enough of that.
okay, any other comments, questions?
Yes, just a general comment about the spelling of names of cities I've noticed, and I'm sure you have all noticed over the years. Prague, for example, on some stamps is spelled Prag on the cancellations. Bucharest on one of the covers you showed today is spelled Bucuer, sorry, Rest. Beirut on many of the covers I have is spelled differently at different times. So I think the possible explanation that this is just not a misspelling, but an alternate spelling that was appropriate at the time is, in my mind, a very valid one.
It's
But the franking says it's the local rate.
Yes.
but the point being that the French would spell a place name differently than the English or the Romanians or the Germans. They're
Right.
all different.
And even the same uh, French or English or German, whoever, over time would may spell the name of a city
Yes.
differently for unknown reasons to me. I think it's more phonetic. It's more the city itself or the country itself may change the way they spell their own names over time. I'm not sure. I never looked into it, but it's not that uncommon.
Yeah. Yeah, I know in northern Algeria, there's a town called Jijeli, and it's spelled 3 or 4 different ways in French circular date stamps as time goes on.
Yes.
I don't know how many of you got to Boston. I know Ed did not, but Jan Berg from Sweden had what is undoubtedly the best possible collection of early Madagascar that included all but and I stood with him. He happened to be in front of his exhibit the day I went to look at it. Jan said he had all but 2 of those large British consular mail stamps in his exhibit.
Did
And
he have any covers?
I don't remember any covers, but he certainly
Okay.
had multiples of the stamps.
Yeah, yeah. The stamps bring tremendous amounts of money. I mean, they're value. They're not $5 and $10 stamps by any
No.
means, and there are people who are very serious about collecting them.
And his exhibit, which was I think 5 frames. I can't 73 to 80. That's 8 frames. So he had 8 frames. It included the Norwegian missionaries. It included the early surcharges. It included those typeset stamps that you showed us the covers from.
I wish I could have seen it. There was a big collection of Madagascar that sold about 15 years ago. I have the catalog, and I think it was a couple hundred lots
Yep.
of early Madagascar. It didn't do group type. That's where it cut off.
And being of Norwegian descent, I had to ask him if it bothered him as a Swede to collect something from Norway. And he laughed and he said, we had the same king at that time, so it's okay.
Was the king Swedish or Norwegian, though?
He was Swedish.
Okay.
The Norwegians celebrate Independence Day on May 17th, and it's independence from Sweden.
Yeah, okay.
Any more questions or comments for Ed?
No?
No. Any more stuff to talk about just because we've got, now we're down to 28 people altogether.
I have a quick announcement. One of the Colfra members is putting up for sale something like 1,700 full sheets of French colony stamps going from, Equatorial Africa to Zanzibar. He has a little bit of everything. If any one of you, I think, Jerry, you got some stuff from Dahomey from him. Um, if anybody is looking for their own collection of French colonies, any kind of, full sheets
Does,
of 50,
does,
100
I
stamps,
did I did get a big chunk of it. I've got all of his Dahomey stuff, and it was fantastic.
yeah. So,
does he have any modern Africa?
I
Former French Africa?
yeah, what you call modern.
Uh, I would say 1970 and later.
I'm not sure.
Okay,
No.
could you check? I have a friend, a retired professor at the University of Pennsylvania who collects modern Africa.
Okay, I'll check the list and I
And
will I will
I happened to get a postcard that was canceled in Chad within the last 3 months or 4 months. And it wasn't posted from Chad. It was taken back to Belgium and posted from Belgium, but it has a Chad postmark and a Chad stamp. And I sent it to this guy, and he was jumping up and down. He was so excited to get it. So he would love to be able to get, modern material if somebody has it. If so, could you check on that for
I
both of
will
us?
I will
Okay.
I will let you know.
Uh,
I have a question.
Yeah, Matt.
For Ed. Yes, Ed, you said, and I think I figured it out when you said University of Pennsylvania, but you mentioned a couple times Washington. I'm assuming that was Washington, D.C. and not Washington State where you were buying those things.
oh yeah, that was the big Washington show,
At
Washington D.C.
yeah, Norpex.
No,
Is that
20 years
No,
ago,
oh,
the
20 years?
International.
Okay. All
this was
righty.
the big international. I won the Grand Prix.
Oh, wonderful. Excellent. Okay,
I
thank you.
actually I'll tell that story. I won the Grand Prix. I thought my chances of winning it were less than zero. Uh, I had been waiting for years to be invited to speak before the French American Chemical Society in France. I've spoken before. I had spoken in the United States before this group, but I was waiting for a French invitation, and I finally got one in June of 2006. But I had to leave for France the day of the banquet. So I was in a 747 flying overseas, and when they presented the awards and they called my name and I wasn't there. Uh, but it was even worse than that. Somehow I screwed up the telephone number for the hotel I was staying at, so no one could contact me to tell me I'd won the Grand Prix, and it was Sunday, and I still didn't know. And finally, Alain Millet, a friend from Paris, called me. We were getting together for dinner while I was in Paris. And he said, "You do know you won the Grand Prix?" And I said, "No, holy gee." I said, "Holy shit," actually, but that was, uh,
Ed, your anecdote from 2006 will get a mention in the July issue of the Philatelist in an article I wrote.
really?
Yes, I
How,
was at the show, but you were not there. I saw
yeah,
your
no,
exhibit. It was a wonderful Grand Prix worldwide collection that was the best in show. The Prix d'Honneur. Yeah, it was a great collection, Guadeloupe. I was there.
well,
But didn't you were in Paris?
yeah, well, no, I think at the time of the banquet, I was probably in a 747. Uh, but
Yeah, this gets a mention in the July issue.
oh, I'll have to look for that.
A shared experience.
But I can't remember his name, brought the Grand Prix back to Jersey, and I'm in a senior living facility now, and I have it on a table in what's my living room. I have that award. It was quite a glorious piece of von Steuben glass from New York, actually.
It was an amazing accomplishment, it really was.
Well, John, I don't know if you ever met John Levitt, who was a member of Friends and Colonies UK and also US. John won a Grand Prix for French Colonies General Issues overall, where he showed stamps and postal history. He got it in '84 in Australia. That was the first Grand Prix for the general issues. I got one for a single colony, and we were hoping JJTR was going to get one for his Saint-Pierre Miquelon overprinted issues, a narrow portion of a French colony. But something happened at Boston. I'm not quite sure what with respect to those awards. And anyway, JJ did not get the Grand Prix, so there was some problem with his exhibit. I don't know if it had to do with tariffs or
I think
whatever.
he was blocked at customs because he went through a small, point of entry to the US, moving from Saint Pierre through Canada to the US, and they didn't want to process his paperwork and stuff, and he just gave up and left.
Well, I really wished he would have gotten that award. Then the three of us, a Brit and an American and somebody from Saint-Pierre, would be the three musketeers of French colonial philately. But it was not to be. So
Another time.
by the way, I am preparing a lecture, as you know, Loic, on philately and coffee mugs. Loic presented me with two coffee mugs, one with the cover of from Indochina of the 25 centime stamp with no Indochine in the legend area. Somehow he's gotten somebody to put that cover on a coffee cup, and then he's also gave me another coffee cup which has the famous French Congo overprints, the 1900 overprints, two of the 5 and two of the 15 prepaying or 40 centime registered rate. That's on the cover too, and that's one of Loic's covers now. So someday we got to get him to show it to us. That is the most valuable group type cover, isn't it? Do you know of anyone cover that's of any more value?
There might be now some, depending on the council, some cover from Indochina used in Yunnan Fu or something like that, with some cancel from Laoke A, Laoke B, Laoke. That might be.
Is that the Chinese influence on the area and Chinese?
Yeah, that might fetch quite a big amount as well.
Okay,
But
well.
that is certainly the most expensive one I have purchased in my 25 years.
Oh, it's the most expensive one I've ever heard about, and I just missed it by a hair. So
Anybody else want to contribute to our discussion?
And
No. If not, I will bring the meeting to a close. This is July, right? So
yep.
we should have one in August because there's no Great American Stamp Show in August this year. And Jerry will.
We're still working on what it's going to be.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. And that means you're listening and you know to turn things off then.
Goodbye, everybody.
All right.
Oh,
Thank you.
goodbye,
Wait, we
thank
got-
you, everyone.
Thanks, Ed.
Okay.
wait, I think we got a
Thank you.
question.
It was
Thank
good
you, Ed.
seeing
It was
everybody
excellent.
again.
Thanks, Ed.
It was excellent, Ed. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yes.
If I
Wonderful.
could mention
Congratulations.
something, is that possible?
What'd you need, Ralph?
Okay, I was going to tell you guys that those of us who collect and exhibit French colonies things had a bit of a success story. I was the exhibit chair at OPEX for many, many years and always a little hesitant to put my best things in the show. But this year I did. I talked someone else into starting to do that 2 or 3 years ago. And my Tahiti Postal History exhibit won the grand award at OPEX. If you want, hold on just a second. I'll show you something. This is the award they give at OPEX for the grand. If you go to the National Cowboy Hall of Fame, which is in Oklahoma City, there's a massive statue. This is called the End of the Trail, and it's the best thing. And the company that makes those makes these trophies, it's actually a friend of mine, but this OPEX always uses this trophy every year. So you ought to think about exhibiting at our show sometime. And who knows, you might be able to win one of these yourselves. But I always like it when a France and colonies exhibit, does really well at a show. So I was pretty excited, as you can probably imagine.
Two things. That is a beautiful award. And two, I'm glad a France and colonies exhibit won it.
Say again.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thanks, Ralph. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Good job, Ed.
Maybe we should have you as the speaker for the next program. I'd like to see what you're doing.
I'd like to see what you're doing.
That is actually a great idea. I will be reaching out to you, Ralph, about that.
Thank you, Ralph.
You bet.
Bye, everybody. I'm going to shut it down.
Okay, bye-bye.